calls all day. Literally, I've spent the entire day on Zoom. So I don't know how I managed that, but whatever. At least it's working now.
Guess you didn't have to do any talking today, so that's good.
Yeah, no. I've been talking all day, so that's why I can't figure out.
We've been doing all the talking.
I've been doing plenty of it, that's for sure.
Okay. We are live on YouTube, just FYI.
Okay, great. We'll give it just a few more minutes for. Have you heard from any council members who cannot attend tonight?
Just Sylvia, nobody else that I'm aware of.
Okay. Let's see, Ethan, John, Ed, Troy. We're missing Alan.
I think just Alan.
Sylvia can't come. Okay. Well, we'll give it like one more minute and then let's just go ahead and start and he can just join in.
Jane, I did forward a public comment to you. So if you got that, hopefully you got that.
Yeah, I did get that. Now, is that public comment will be for the beginning of the meeting when there's public comment on items that are not on the agenda, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Okay. Do you want to read that or do you want me to?
Sure, either way, or yeah, whoever, yeah, I can read it.
All right, I'll let you. All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. So I want to welcome everyone to the Alpine City Planning Commission meeting of August 8th. And we have with us Planning Commission members Troy Slade, Ed Bush, John McKay, Ethan Allen, and I'm Jane Greiner, the Planning Commission Chair. And from staff, we have Austin Roy, the city planner, and Jed Muhlstein, the city engineer, and Marla Fox. And I always forget her proper title. So we'll go ahead and get started. We had Sylvia Christensen down for the opening prayer and Ethan for the Pledge of Allegiance. So maybe Troy, would you mind saying an opening prayer in place of Sylvia? We'll excuse her. She had a family incident that she needed to take care of. So,
yeah. Our dear Father in heaven, we are thankful that we can be able to meet together this evening in this capacity and attend to these responsibilities. We ask you to bless that we can be able to discuss these matters and please guide our decisions, that we can be able to do our very best. And ask you to please watch over this city and bless the residents that reside within it. And these present blessings we ask, and we do so in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
thank you. And then I'll just remind everyone for the Pledge of Allegiance, Austin can share an image of the flag. And if we'll all mute ourselves except for Ethan, it will make it sound a lot better. Was anyone able to hear Ethan? Ethan, can you see if something's wrong with if your microphone's turned on? Try talking and let's see if we can hear you. Okay, we'll let you work on that. Instead, while you work on that, Ed, would you say the Pledge of Allegiance so that we have a recorded Pledge of Allegiance and we can thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thanks everyone for being flexible while we work with the tools and technology that we have. I spent the first part of the call not responding to anyone because I wasn't being able to hear them. So Ethan, do you want to try talking again and see if we can hear you? You're on mute now. You're actually muted now. So try taking it off mute. Okay, now try. No, we still can't hear you. Yeah, still can't hear anything you're saying. So I think he's going to drop off and rejoin. And for the record, we have Alan McDonald, who's joined us as well. Thanks, Alan. Ethan was having some trouble with his audio, so he's going to join the call again. And it looks like his audio might be connecting this time. All right, Ethan, try talking again and let's see if we can hear you. You're on mute still. So unmute yourself. Still can't hear you. You could join through your phone. If you look on the meeting, there should be a phone number and you should be able to join audio through your phone. So let's give that a try and see if we can get that. Since you can hear us though, I'm going to go forward and then we'll test your audio again once you join by phone, okay? Okay, so at the beginning of the meeting now, we're at the point of public comment where anyone can comment on items that are not on the agenda. And Austin did forward me a comment from a citizen of Alpine, and he's agreed to read it to us. And then Austin, will you also check YouTube after doing that?
Sure, okay.
Thanks.
So I'll go with this first comment here. This is from Benton Collins. And he says, to the Alpine City Planning Commission, Alpine City is a beautiful city. Thank you for all your effort on its residents' behalf. We have two items to bring forward to you tonight. First, in a meeting on January 24th, 2017, the Alpine City Council approved final plans for the creation of the Alpine West Meadow subdivision. The meeting minutes suggested that a benefit of the plan was to provide further street access to Westfield Road. This street is Sycamore Lane. As an unintended consequence, it appears as though Sycamore Lane has developed into a busy thoroughfare, giving access to residents driving from north to south Alpine and vice versa. Not only are there many cars driving down Sycamore Lane, speeding down this residential road is commonplace. This jeopardizes health and well-being of not only local residents, but school children utilizing crosswalks on Long Drive that access Timberline Middle School. Currently, there are no speed limit signs on Sycamore Lane. There is one stop sign at the intersection of Long Drive and Sycamore Lane. It is routinely not obeyed. Local law enforcement stopped a driver on the evening of August 3rd, 2020 for failing to stop at this stop sign. We would like to recommend as solutions. Number one, create a three-way stop at the intersection of Long Drive and Sycamore Lane. This will provide added safety, especially to school students. Two, there is no speed limit sign posted on Sycamore Lane. We recommend that a school speed limit sign with speed detection be installed. And three, lastly, we strongly recommend any measures to create more thoroughfares that will lead from North Alpine to South Alpine. Sycamore Lane was not intended to have as many cars as it does driving on it. If the commission would like further evidence of how many cars drive on Sycamore Lane, we will be installing a camera to continuously record and will be able to give day-by-day data. Second, Long Drive and the surrounding side streets act as de facto parking lots for individuals utilizing the fields. This is especially prevalent for youth organized sports. Many of the individuals arriving for these events are not local residents of Alpine and do not care about the preservation of it. This has been evidenced by the consistent refuse produced by patrons at the events that later end up in residential yards and a patron noted to be urinating in the street. These events are held routinely nearly every day and provide constant concerns for the area. It should be noted that the Utah Soccer Association has been contacted and they have stated that multiple occasions they have informed families attending soccer games at Timberline Middle School to park in the parking lots and not in the street. This has not produced adequate results as of yet. After review of City Council solutions to these types of situations in the past, we would like to recommend similar solutions. As proposed and ratified in the City Council meeting on September 27, 2016, the Council agreed to place further fencing and stronger no parking signs near Smooth Canyon Park to help deter the frequent parking. We would like to recommend the following solutions: extend the fence at Timberline Middle School to disallow access to the fields. The existing fence leaves much open access to the fields, which entice the visiting individuals to park as close to the field as possible. 2, place no parking for event signs on Long Drive and surround the side streets. These signs should also have verbiage that states that violators will be ticketed or towed. 3, review the number of events scheduled at the field. Then, if possible, reduce the number of sporting events held. Thank you for your consideration on these 2 issues. Benton Collins.
Okay, thank you. Brings up some really good points, I think, or, something that are worth looking into. So, Austin, which of those items would come before City Council as an action item, or Planning Commission, or would they all go to City Council?
To be honest, like street signage is probably more of a City Council.
Right.
I guess, for Planning Commission, you could take into consideration the fact that, that they're warning against any north-south connection in Alpine, that those should be carefully monitored as new developments are approved. So
yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
So should we forward that message on to City Council so that it's read there, or reply to the person and suggest that they send it to them as well?
Yeah, I think that would be wise to have that comment read at the City Council next week.
I'll reply to the citizen and suggest that they forward that to the City Council, or will you just forward that to City Council?
I can do that if the Planning Commission, if that's what you're recommending, I can just.
I think that's what should be done. Most of the time when people come in for Planning Commission, in the comment section, it's great, but frequently the concern is actually something that needs to go to City Council. So
yeah,
in this case, that is.
So let me just briefly pipe in on that.
Yeah.
Those, I live just around the corner on the south side of Burgess.
Okay.
And, yeah, if they think they've seen congestion, just wait till football season. If we're going to have, again, football going. But, I live just south of those baseball fields that they have at Burgess Park.
Yeah.
And besides all those concerns that I think it was the Collins noted, it became a huge safety concern for, we that lived in that neighborhood driving back and forth, because there would be cars parked on both sides of the street. It left you very little room to try to squeeze between, and between car doors opening, children darting out, kids with big baseball bags and whatever else. It was scary. And so ultimately, at least one of the measures that was proposed and the city did end up doing, traffic control, was to take one side of the street, paint the curbs red, and put no parking signs. So at least the parking would be confined to only one side of the street instead of both sides, because everything that Collins mentioned are legitimate concerns on those streets surrounding both the park and the junior high ball fields. I mean, you want the kids
Yeah.
to play, you want the families to be there. We just
Oh,
have
for
to
sure.
figure out how to accommodate competing interests.
Oh, I agree completely. I've had football players and baseball players and have just driven through there having great fear for everyone who's there and myself too, that I would never injure it, that I wouldn't injure anyone and still get through. So I think that's great. Let's send that forward to City Council. And I think we, given the time of year, it's a good thing to look at, you know, even with school, we don't really know what's happening, but either way, it's going to be a lot more with football season and school in some form or another. So, okay, thanks. Were there any other comments that were on? I don't see anything on YouTube. I pulled that up as well. Although they are a little bit delayed, but I still don't think we have anything there. If you guys want to be entertained, you can watch the YouTube channel because it's behind us by guessing about 2 minutes. So you can look over and watch yourself talking. Kind of freaks you out. All right, well, let's move forward to the first item on our agenda, which, let's see, my right window open here. Got too many windows bouncing around. All right. So the first action item on the agenda is the discussion on the general plan and land use regulations, intermunicipal connecting streets. So if Austin wants to give us some direction and the feedback from City Council on what they would like us to do with this. Before you start, Austin, though, Ethan, can you try speaking and we can make sure that this audio is working?
Sure, I think this is working.
Yep, great, we can hear you. Okay, just want to make sure before we get in the middle of anything. Thanks.
Okay, so this is the discussion on the general plan and land use regulations. It's coming to Planning Commission from City Council. They've asked that the Planning Commission look at the language in our general plan as well as our ordinances with regards to connections to neighboring municipalities. And so what we have here tonight are some policies. This is some proposed additions to the draft general plan that we have. And so the City Council is actually currently working on this general plan, and they do have plans to update that and hopefully adopt something by the end of the year. So we're working on that. I've actually met with a few of the City Council members already, and we've been, they have a lot of ideas and feedback on the general plan that was sent to them, recommended by the Planning Commission. And this would have been a couple years ago now, but it just never got adopted. And so they want to make that happen. But as part of that, they did adopt a resolution in July that puts a kind of a moratorium on any connections to neighboring municipalities while this language is being updated. And so we have here tonight, this is part of the transportation and traffic circulation element of the general plan. So staff has put together some language here, which you can see in green, and then some modifications to the existing draft language, which is in red. And so these are just kind of ideas. We haven't had a chance to run these by David Church, the city attorney, yet. So we haven't had a legal eye on it yet. So just, with that caveat, as we look at this language for discussion tonight, whatever comes out of this meeting tonight, we'll present that to David Church so that he can kind of see what he thinks about the suggestions that the Planning Commission might have.
Okay, great. So this is not going to be a motion or a recommendation. This is just a discussion to give our input on what we think the wording should be in the general plan And then David Church will take a look at it and it will go from there. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yep.
All right, great. So Alan, I am sorry, I have been busy the last couple days and I kept forgetting to get back to you. Austin, can you send to everyone again the link to this full document of the draft of the general plan that is not adopted, but is being currently looked at for adoption?
Sure. Yeah, I can definitely.
Okay, just a couple of us had trouble actually finding the link again, and
Okay.
just be easier rather than going back is if you'll just send it again. So,
Yes, I will do that for sure tonight.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so have you guys had a chance to read through this? Comments? 1.3, I'll just make my one comment. I think that's a good change. I understand the purpose of why it was there at the time, but I think that's implied, and rather than actually calling that out, that makes it sound like we're trying to integrate with the other cities. So I like that modification. Comments on that and the next modifications? What do you guys think of the wording?
So this is Ed. I agreed. I thought that was a good deletion from 1.3. It could be interpreted in multiple ways.
Right.
In that. I sent a couple of comments to Austin. 1.6 is an interesting one. I think you really will need to pass it by David Church's thing, because in me reading it, it sounds like it could be conditional at the city council's discretion. It seems to almost imply that you could override kind of land use laws. So I was a little worried that the city council's discretion may not fly as much. I gave him a couple of stabs at 1.7. I had reservations about just to preserve the closed nature of Alpine City. Sounded a little bit like we're kind of just like folding in on ourselves. I really thought the issue that we could do in terms of limiting the intermunicipal connecting streets was in the name of kind of facilitating safety by having the city maintaining control of its traffic and emergency access routes to the neighborhoods. And we would not want to, like, for example, with the Summit Point, if that were to become a free-flowing road, we would lose some control over the traffic planning or the traffic flow within the city, because it would be coming through from another municipality. Likewise, if we relied on them to do the emergency access, as we had discussed and the city council had discussed, that access was dependent upon Draper following through on their side also in there. And so I was thinking that we could use, in the name of kind of the safety of the city, that the city would like to maintain its control of its traffic flow and its emergency accesses, and not be relying on connecting to other cities.
Okay.
And then finally, 1.8 is an interesting one, because I think it could be moved to the front of the document. It's not really just a traffic thing, is that, the city council, anything that should be done, the city council should find compatible with the goals and policies of the city general plan. Whatever is being, it's really not just the connections. It's kind of, so anyway, those were my comments to Austin.
Okay. All right. Would anyone else like to comment on those 3 points as well?
Well, I agree with Ed on I don't really like the preserved closed nature of Alpine City.
Yeah. I almost like the word rural, or, something residential, or, I don't know.
I just think it's unnecessary. We're saying something that's kind of obvious.
Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, I would just say that I like Ed's comments as well, because if you go, I don't remember where it is in the document, but as just part of the general plan, it indicates that the very obligation of the city council is, for example, preserve views, look out for the public safety. I mean, there's several, bang, bang, bang data points. And to the extent that we parrot those data points, then, I think we have more of an airtight policy document to then build, future legislation off of. So I like Ed's edit of that, where we get rid of the term preserve the closed nature of Alpine City. And I think that you want a policy statement like that to parrot the stated obligations of the Planning Commission, and particularly the City Council, with respect to, whatever it was. I mean, again, health, safety, welfare, open spaces, view corridors, whatever those bullet points are that we are supposed to really give an eye to and incorporate that type of language into these policies, which I think Ed does pretty well there by going to the by going to the safety language.
Mhm. What do you think about, 1.5 says, promote the use of roundabouts or other traffic flow options to prevent the need for stoplights, therefore maintaining the historic small town rural atmosphere. If we were to go to the very beginning of the general plan, and I don't know, Austin, if you have that and could pull that up. I mean, at the very beginning, there is like a guiding statement, if I recall. And if we could look at that, in some ways, to me, adding 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 seems like a little overkill, or like restating some of the obvious. I don't know. It almost seems to me like overkill to have 3 more points that specifically talk about it. So, maybe by changing one of them to meet what Ed was mentioning, but 1.7 and 1.8, I don't know. Well, Austin, see if he can pull that up. Troy, did you have any comments you wanted to add?
No, not really. I thought Ed's was really,
Mm-hmm.
I thought he made some great comments, and
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I don't
Um,
really have anything.
preserve the closed nature of Alpine City. So first of all, I agree with everyone. I don't like that sentence at all. In fact, I don't like that whole sentence. Connections to outside municipalities shall only be allowed if city council finds that the proposed connections are compatible with the goals. Like, to me, that is restating an obvious, rather than just connections to municipalities. Do you think that we should have I don't know. To me, that like the statement of the city council shall review everything to see if it's compatible with the goals and policies of the city's general plan. I don't know. Oh, good. Here you've got it. I thought at the very beginning, there's all the different elements. So just the land use element, maintain and promote a historic small town rural atmosphere that embraces agricultural uses, open spaces, and the mountainous surroundings of the city. So it's just the land use, I guess, is what I was thinking of. But that's kind of reiterated through it, is to try to maintain and promote the small town rural atmosphere. And so if you get a chance to read through this whole thing, that is the overarching theme of it, is in each of these different elements to serve citizens, but also maintain the reason why people, came to Alpine. And then if you look at number 1.5, this is something that may have to also be modified, but you can read through those others, but let's see, where did that go? Preserve and beautify the 3 gateways into the city, and do so in a way that it is clear you're entering Alpine. So while they have those gateways, doesn't necessarily mean every single connection to another city. But basically, those were kind of like the three main corridors that anyone from outside comes into the city. So that's where that conversation or term gateways to the city came from. So anyway, just some thoughts. I don't know, what do you, Austin, are you the one who suggested these or came up this, did staff kind of come up with these ideas or?
Yeah, most of these came from me. Yeah.
Okay. So can I see Ed's suggestion again?
This is where we really need to have Sylvia here.
Exactly.
Yeah, she's the
Seriously.
wordsmith.
Yeah.
The problem I have with focusing in on safety is that we've had the traffic studies performed on virtually everything that we've ever looked at.
Exactly.
And there's never been a safety issue as far as the traffic engineers are concerned.
Yeah. Because they compare all streets the same. It doesn't matter if it's a subdivision or Main Street. They do the same rating, which drives me nuts. I can't believe that that's still, I just think somebody should have thought up something different all these years. To me, there should be a traffic rating for the type of street it is. If it's a subdivision street, to me, it should have traffic rating separate from the main intersection in town, but it's not. It's all straight on how many seconds someone waits at a stop sign before they proceed. And so there's never going to be a traffic study that says we have too much traffic or that it's a safety issue, because we will always have an A rating. That doesn't mean it's acceptable to us, the citizens of the city, but it will never be an issue. But
Yeah.
that's a good point.
If I can just chime in here. So I think you want to be cautious using the safety reasoning, because if you're up in a hillside community and there's a wildfire and you need a way to get out of there, you could probably use that to make an argument for a municipal connection.
Right.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. So I was kind of thinking, I mean, I understand the concept behind that. But so let's just look at 1.6 first, I guess. New street connections to other municipalities or areas outside the city boundaries shall be conditional at the city council's. Well, we change it instead of saying at discretion or saying conditional at the approval of the city council, and would require an update to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable ordinances, or something along that lines, and not use city council discretion. What do you guys think would be a better wording there for that?
I like that better.
Okay. So something like shall be conditional on the city council's approval and an update to the general plan, street master plan, and any applicable ordinances. So that would just basically state if there was any other connection, it has to go through all the things. Do we need to state in that that's not already shown? I mean, do we have, Austin, some neighborhood streets that connect, or that the show long-term is connecting, like over on the Bangeter property and 8th North and areas like that where they're going into Alpine?
So let me see if I can pull up a map here. So we do have some, like, are you asking about existing or proposed?
Existing or that are already on our master plan?
Yeah, so if you look here, let me zoom in. So off of High Bench.
Hey, Austin, go to the street master plan map. It'd show these connections better.
Okay.
Hi, Jed.
Hi, Jane.
I'll probably be clearer on that. Okay. Okay, the High Bench connection. So this one has been planned for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Highland's not a big fan of it. They probably don't want to see it, to be honest, but there's a stubbed road in Highland and there's a stubbed road in Alpine. So let me zoom out so you can get some context of where this is. This is in the far southeast corner of town.
By like the
over here.
fire pit, not fire pit. Oh my gosh. sand, what's it called? Gravel pit that's there.
Yeah, there's a big gravel pit right about where my mouse is. So there's a little community over here. It's part of Highland, I believe. That, you know, a lot of people think it's Cedar Hills, but it's actually Highland. And anyways, on the if you go to the Highland side, there is a stubbed road that goes to about here-ish. And then, no, I'm sorry, it goes right up to the border. And so in Alpine, this is just a big field right now. Nothing's been developed here, but the plans when this area was developed, it was basically proposed that there would be a mirror image of this subdivision on the other side. So it would look just like it, kind of a circular or horseshoe development there. And so we have soccer fields here. Those soccer fields would also be on this side, but the idea is that there would be a connection here. So that's one of our connections. There is also a stubbed road over here. This is 800 South, so on the east part of town, kind of over by Ethan Allen. There's this stubbed connection.
Wait, that's on the west side of town.
West side, I'm sorry.
South, yeah. Okay, southwest. I'm like,
sorry,
hey.
I misspoke. So the west side of town.
Yeah.
And then we also have right here in the middle, this is Andy's Drive, kind of down by Rachel McTeer Park and Allegheny Way.
Okay.
There's a stubbed connection there as well. So
those are all stubs right now. None of those are actual street.
Correct.
Okay. But none of those are considered like a major collector road or entrance to the city. Those are neighborhoods kind of adjoining.
Correct. And that's why I think you don't want to use the gateway language that has been talked about before, because these are not gateway. I wouldn't define these as gateways, from a planning perspective.
Yeah.
They're just local residential streets. So.
Can I make a comment on that though? Let me just make a comment. I think one of the reasons why the city council is having us taking a look at this is to avoid the issues we had like with a development like Summit Point. Right. Summit Point did not propose to put a gateway connection into the city. They were proposing in their thing to put a local or an emergency access road in there, right? So if we just talk about gateways here, I don't think we're going to satisfy what the city council is driving or trying to drive the city to define, is that not to have more connections than we plan, whether they be local or gateway.
Yeah. I agree. That was my point, was that these connections aren't gateways. These are just connections.
I think it hinges more on whether they're in existence or contemplated in the current master plan.
Exactly. Whether they show already on the master plan. And so if the city, like if Highland City, if any of these were considered to not be, to be detrimental or a problem to the city, then they wouldn't exist. I think one of the reasons that some of these are not a concern to the city is they don't create a major flow of traffic. Like there's not a reason for residents to be going that direction. And I'm sure that's why Highland is concerned about the one on the east and south corner, is that could become a cut through to all those residents right off of the main road. And then that neighborhood would become a cut through to all the residents on the east side of Alpine. I don't know, but I would guess that that's their concern. Or because right now those people have to go all the way down and into Alpine and back up into their neighborhood.
And then one more thing I think as we craft this language, something that should be kept in mind is that we do have some unincorporated land up in the northeast corner of town. So right here where this cuts off, there is some land up here that could potentially be developed down the road that's not within the city boundaries.
Right.
And so,
that wouldn't be on our master plan because it's not, that's the old Melby property, right? Which I don't know.
The Melby and then the Pine Grove, I believe it's called, or Pine View. I can't remember the exact name of it.
And so on those, those, do they have stub streets shown connecting them? It looks like they do.
Jed, do you know to what extent those are stubbed?
I mean, what do those black lines mean?
Well, the one on the far northeast exists. That's what goes up to the Forest Service parking lot up there.
Right.
The one coming off, I believe that's called Aspen Drive. That actually
Yeah.
also does exist. That is a paved stub street to the property boundary, and after that, it's a gravel road. But
Mhm.
I mean, you see the purple dash there. Three Falls is going to be connecting that with pavement this fall.
But it's still gated, isn't it?
Yes.
So it's like a crash gate type situation.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, the city, if the city annexes property, then they would have to go through this same thing, and the city council would have to say, okay, we've annexed this property. I mean, they'll have to change the master street plan. It won't be going into an adjacent city then anyway at that point. And if they develop it in the county, then city council will have to approve it. But I do think we need to be careful whether or not we're showing on our master plan that those are already streets that we have proposed in the master plan. Do you think it would be better not to show those? You know what I'm saying, Jed?
They already exist, I guess, is my only problem. Every one of
Yeah.
those, there's actually 3 of them, and they all
Okay.
already exist.
Where's the other one?
Right there in the middle, coming off Oak Ridge Drive.
I don't see it on the master plan.
It's the gray line. It's not highlighted as anything. It's just there.
But it looks like it's still within the city.
Correct. It's a stub street within the city.
Oh, okay, so it's a stub street.
It goes right up to the
It
city
existed.
boundary and then cuts off. Yeah.
Okay, I thought you meant it existed on the other side of the city boundary.
Oh, no, sorry. Yeah, it's
That's
just
okay.
It's an existing stub.
Okay. So
Where-
what other stubs are there then? We've got those 2 on the south side of town. What else do we have?
Yeah, I mean, you can consider the box elder as a connection to I guess that's a full-blown connection, because this is
Mhm.
technically in the county,
Right,
up above Lambert Park there.
yep,
And then, we do have some connections over here on the west side. So here's Westfield Road. There is this proposed connection here to this is kind of the Mendenhall property, if you're familiar with it.
right. Uh-huh.
And so
So there's a proposed connection to Westfield Road, or that'll actually have to go into Highlands before it gets to Westfield Road.
correct. Yeah. Is there any other connections that I'm missing here, Jed?
Not that I can think of. Maybe over on the east side, straight east of Country Manor.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there's
Ball
right.
Mountain,
Right.
yeah, Ball
Yeah.
Mountain.
Yep.
So that goes in and out of the city through county property,
Correct. Yep.
and it doesn't exist right now, right?
It doesn't. There is an existing stub from Bald Mountain right to the property line or city boundary.
Okay. Okay, so you think that every stub street is shown here, and as far as developments go, on the on the east side, it's county property. On the west side, it's Highland. And the Bangeter property is the other potential, although it's got that river through the middle of it, it really would connect down on 8th North probably.
Or the Alpine.
You're talking about the Mendenhall property.
Yeah, yeah. No, and look on the Bangeter property.
Right there.
Okay, right. Okay. So based off that and kind of the discussion we have of, we don't want to tie this to the gateways. I like the idea of just basically saying that, any street that doesn't currently show on the master plan would go through those steps outlined in 1.6. mean, that would come as part of a development anyway, wouldn't it? Which has to go before city council, but this is just calling it out specifically.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and any development's gonna have to go to the city council. So
Okay. So do you guys have any wording changes to 1.6? We were going to change the word discretion. That was it. City boundaries shall be,
I think you said
I
at the-
don't like conditional.
yeah, get rid of the word conditional and just say shall be,
Shall require city council's
shall
approval.
required. Yeah, let's get rid of the B and just say shall require city council approval and require, and then the rest of it. I like that too. So boundaries shall require city council approval and you can get rid of the require there, and an update to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable ordinances.
So why do we even need 1.7?
Well, that's my question is
I don't think it's needed.
1.7 and 1.8 are just redundants.
I think 1.8 moved to the top makes sense
Move to the top where?
of the section.
Of the section or of the whole, yeah. So to me though, does 1.8 say anything that 1.6 doesn't already say?
Yeah, no, I don't think it does.
Yeah, because the city council is going to approve it. They already know their job is to approve something based on the goals and policies of the city. So to me, it's,
Might be good to just reaffirm that by inserting that language into 1.6.
okay, so what if, so you're saying shall be approved by city council,
Subject to,
subject to the goals and subject to city council finding the goals and finding it compatible with the goals and policies of the general plan?
yeah.
And then maybe period, and then in addition, this will require an update to blah, blah, blah. So it's not like the biggest run-on sentence ever. Do you guys like that idea?
So then we just have one item.
Yeah.
I like it.
I think that's more concise, so I would say that's good.
Okay. When you get that jotted down, Austin, do you want to read it back to us so we actually know, or Marla? I'm thinking that shall be, shall require approval of the city council based on compatibility with the goals and policies of the city general plan or something like that, period, and then.
So what if my notes are correct, this is kind
Okay.
of what I have. It's not exact language, but the rough idea is new street connections to other municipalities or areas outside the city boundaries shall require city council approval and an update to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable ordinance. And shall also be subject to city council finding, city council finding it compatible with the goals and policies of the city general plan.
Yeah, we were thinking of putting that up, including that at the beginning of, or where you first mentioned city council instead of kind of repeating it at the end. So it would say something more along the lines of shall be,
Hey, Jane,
yeah,
idea. What if the language was something like this?
okay,
New street connections to other municipalities or areas outside the city boundaries must be compatible with the goals and policies of the city general plan, comma, and shall require city council approval and
perfect,
update to the general plan, street master plan, and applicable ordinances.
love it,
Bingo.
thank you.
That's
I need
good.
to copy and paste these things into a Word document instead of trying to look at them. Do you do that, Alan? Do you copy it and start wordsmithing yourself there?
No, I'm just staring at it.
Oh, man, you're better than me. I start losing track. I have to like actually type it out or I get lost. I like that. And I personally think that covers everything. If we all agree that starting to bring specifics like safety and other things into it could actually put us more at risk than help, where this just basically, I think, empowers the city council with the guidance that tells them that that needs to be compatible with the general plan and the goals and policies of the city and go through all of these steps.
So
Ed, what do you think?
just to play a little bit of devil's advocate, because
Yeah.
I've got my own reasons how I would argue this, but
Yeah.
so say we have a development like Summit Point that comes in,
Uh-huh.
right? And of
Mhm.
course, because they are either doing a new subdivision or a plat amendment, they're going to have to go through city council approval anyway,
Right.
right? What would we point to in this statement that says it's not that they couldn't go ahead with it? It's because it's not in the general plan.
It would require an update to the general plan and the street master plan, which would then come to us to say, is this modification to the master plan a good idea? Are there any safety problems? Are there any, other problems like that? And all those things would be discussed in planning commission, and then they would be discussed in city council before it was adopted.
I'm just trying to replay what we just,
Yeah,
the thing in here. Okay, so it comes to us and we get a traffic plan that's put together that says there's no safety issue, because we've already talked about that. So there's no safety issue and whatever. And
Right.
so I don't know if we would have anything to stand on, because you could say that it requires an update to a general plan. Well, okay, so update
Yeah.
the general plan then, right?
Well,
But I think, Ed, what we would do is just say, well, we recommend denial because it doesn't, it would
it's not compatible.
it's not compatible with the general plan nor the master street plan. And therefore we need to deny it. We recommend denial unless the city council would like to amend the street master plan or the general plan. So that
Right.
ball would be in their court, would it not? I think that's procedurally how it would work. So we would recommend denial because as an administrative process, it's not compatible with the framework that we've been given to work with. And if the city council wants to then amend to allow something because they find it's in the best interest of the city, then I suppose they could do so, or they would send it back to us to then recommend some type of amendment. At least I think that's how it would work.
My understanding is that as long as it's in the general plan, state law gives deference to letting cities decide what to do within that plan and not forcing them to modify
Right.
it. So
And
I think
also,
that's the route we're trying to get to.
mhm.
So I understand that, but the thing that seems to be the limiting factor in the statement here is that there's actually, other than this one, there's no other statement of any interconnections. The street master plan is an interesting document because, for one, we have internal streets that are being put in that are not updated in the plan. So does that mean every time we do an update to the street master plan, we have to go through the public hearing process and whatever, if we're considering that to be part of the general plan? If it's not, then it seems like we flexibly change it without a lot of, pomp and circumstance.
Austin or Jed, do you want to reply to how the street master plan works with subdivisions that are added to the city?
So, I mean, the street master plan is a living document. It's constantly updated. That's a normal thing for the street master plan, to be honest. I mean, I can expound upon that, but we've made changes over the years as you know, annexations have occurred, as new subdivisions, as the city gets built out. It's just natural that that's added onto.
What types of roads are not shown on the street master plan?
Trails.
Every single street in the city shows on the street master plan?
Well, I guess I don't understand your question. We got collector, residential, arterial, secondary access.
So Jed, what he's saying is every neighborhood, every subdivision we approve, do you guys then go back and add those streets that we just approved to the street master plan?
We do.
So my point being is that the street master plan seems to be more of a reactive document than a proactive document.
I would disagree with that. So it's definitely, there are some residential streets that are key and they are shown on the master plan as future. And then arterial and collector roads are also shown on the street master plan. Those have been planned out through a transportation study that Horrocks engineers did for the city many years ago. And so, yeah, it's definitely not a reactive. The residential streets that are typically added via the subdivision process, those are, I mean, our ordinance allows for them to create smaller residential streets. But if they create a development, a perfect example, if they create a development such as Westfield Meadows, where a collector road ran through that area, then we require them to build that road as part of the development. So they're following the street master plan as part of that development. So we had that public comment earlier. They're saying Sycamore Lane is not intended for high traffic volumes. That's actually incorrect. Sycamore Lane is a collector street and it is intended for higher volumes.
And was shown on the master plan before.
And, correct, and is shown on the master plan. So the smaller subdivisions where you're creating residential streets, I would agree with Ed's comment. In that situation, it is more reactive because those streets aren't necessarily as important to the overall traffic flow of the city where the arterials and collectors come into play.
Right.
But
yeah.
So I guess you could say it's both.
Mhm.
Yes, we have planned for the bigger roads. We are discussing the connections to other cities right now, but the smaller roads that don't necessarily affect the overall grand scheme of things, those are a more reactive type of situation.
Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to clarify. So thanks. The other thing I wanted to mention too, Ed, as we look through this, I think we have to look at this whole section. Like when we read 1.6, it almost helps to start with 1.1 and read down, because 1.1 is promote safe and efficient traffic circulation by following the street master plan. So are any of those connect neighborhoods, you know what I mean? Work with adjacent cities and other agencies to acquire financial aid for transportation. I don't know. So do you feel like we need to specifically call out street connections to other municipalities in a more than just 1.6, given all of those previous policies?
I guess my fear is I don't believe 1.6 is strong enough.
Okay.
Right, because when I read the 1.6, it says, well, it's got to comply with the general plan. It's got to be approved by the city council, which it would have to be anyway. And then we would have to, if it's approved, we would have to update our plans,
Yeah.
which we would have to anyway, right? So,
well,
the only thing that it seems to be calling out, other than administrative, yes, approval and an update would be necessary, is that it would have to be compatible with the goals and policies of the city general plan. But it's kind of like folding in back upon itself, because this is the general plan, right? I
Maybe, maybe this is something that we ought to get David Church advice on it as well. To me, if this statement had existed when that came to us, that would have clearly told us that we would not recommend approval, because this is specifically saying that if it's not on that, it requires a change. That wasn't called out before in the previous general plan.
you have to explain your logic to me, Jane. So why would we have rejected it?
Because this statement in here would have said that new street connections would require an update to the general plan, the street master plan, et cetera. So we would have said, we can't recommend approval of this. All these other steps have to be done.
Okay, so you got a chicken and the egg situation then, right? So you're saying that it would require an update to the street master plan, but we can't do it because it's not in the street master plan. How would anything ever get approved then or updated in the street master plan?
Well,
Right.
I think what it would allowed us to, I mean, I think at least the way I read it is what it would have allowed us to do was cite to 1.6 and say,
Right.
well, look, this isn't a new subdivision or a PRD. This is a new street connection to another municipality. And we wouldn't have had a whole lot of choice except to deny that because it's not shown in the general plan or the street master plan. And it would have been conditional upon the city council basically, I wouldn't say reversing us because we're not, right? I mean, it's not a quasi judicial process. It wouldn't reverse us. They could have just said, no, in our view, this will promote other policies if there were a good reason to do that. And they could then go ahead and, because all we do is give them a recommendation of either approval or denial. But had we had 1.6 and Summit Point being a new street connection, we would have had a basis to recommend denial that we don't have without 1.6.
And it probably wouldn't have come to us to begin with. What would have happened is it would have started with, well, if you guys want to do this subdivision, Jed and Austin would have said, well, this isn't in the street master plan and that's a requirement. So therefore we need to take to planning commission a request that could we put a stub street into Draper here where someone is requesting that we modify our street master plan. And then we would have started with the street master plan.
And because, Jane, it was a new street connection to another municipality,
Right.
not just it was a new street connection within within existing city boundaries.
Right, exactly. So, but Ed, I think your points are good. And I think it's good that you have that opinion. And I think what we really need to do though, is I think we need legal advice on it. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I would agree with that. I think anything that we do, I mean, it needs to be floated by David to see if it holds any water or not.
Well, what would your recommendation be then to beef it up? I mean, just what, like, if you don't think 1.6 as it was somewhat combined with 1.8, I think all of our goal is to give the city council the tools necessary to, make the best decisions. So, I mean, in your mind, or at least what are your thoughts with respect to, how would we beef it up?
You could, well, I think, in 1.7, we make the statement specifically that says that connecting streets to existing plan, we're going to limit to existing plan connections only. So you could say, street connections shall be limited to, intermunicipal street connections to other municipality or whatever, shall be limited to existing plan connections only, and then say, comma, new street connections, shall be considered, But I liked 1.7 from the perspective that it said that we are limiting it now to the plan connections only.
Okay, so what if we added that? I mean, we can do more than one statement, but what if you start 1.6 by saying intermunicipal connecting streets are limited to those shown on the master plan, on the master street plan, comma. or period. New street connections should be will be considered. Is that, you'd like to just flat out say that it's limited to that?
Yeah, that's where I'm saying, I think that's the meat that we need, that if we're going to
Okay.
fight back somebody like that, we point to
Not
that.
worry that it's implied 1.6.
Right.
And
I like that.
Okay.
I think it's critical that you don't just say street connections, but that you emphasize that it's intermunicipal street connections.
Yes, I agree. I agree, because
Okay, so then did Marla or Austin, did somebody write down my original integration of 1.6 and 1.8? And can we then add Ed's language, which I think we agree sounds pretty good, to the beginning of whatever Ed's language was? Well, I wouldn't say piggyback because we're adding it to the initial part of 1.6 to then be followed by the body of what I had suggested, if that makes sense. So Ed had a lead-in sentence to start with the
intermunicipal connecting streets shall be limited to existing planned connections only. So just the second half of that sentence.
Right.
Intermunicipal connecting streets, and then just put shall be limited to existing planned connections only, period. Does that sound right, Ed?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Marla, did you get that?
I'm gonna have to go back and re-listen to it and get it.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, so basically just add what that sentence I just said, and then put that in front of what Alan said. So I like that. I think that's good if that firms it up.
Yep.
What I was worried about, and I don't think that does it, but what I want to make sure we do is by trying to provide more detail, that we don't just create loopholes for ourselves. Like you said, by implying safety, that we don't just have to say, well, we did a study and there's no safety problems, but your idea is shot, you know? Okay, do you guys feel good about sending that and asking Dave's opinion?
Yeah, you
And
definitely.
it's gonna come back to us, right, Austin?
Yes, yeah, this will come back for, before we send it
And
on.
I think in the meantime, if any of us have more ideas, then let's submit them to Austin. So sometimes I have a great idea after the meeting ends. I've been brainstorming while I've been in the meeting, but it doesn't come to me till later. And I'm like, I really like this. Feel free at any point on things like this, where it's discussion points or anything to do with the plan, to submit ideas to Austin at any time. Right, Austin? That's okay to say.
Absolutely.
And then he can just add to, and
Keep them coming.
yeah, keep that guy busy. He's been sitting around the office way too much. I've heard they're having trouble with the network because he's streaming videos all the time down there. Okay. Are we good to move on? Austin, do you think you have the direction on that enough?
Yes, I think, I think we can go back and Marla can put that language together, and then okay. And then I'll run it by David, that language, and then bring it back before we send a recommendation.
I think that was a great discussion.
Can we have her read it to us, what she has? Can we hear it?
So are you guys trying to just combine 0.16 with 1.7 and not have 3 separate?
We're trying to do one, not 3 separate.
They're trying to, basically, all 3 have been merged to some extent. They've thrown out some language and preserved the pieces of each of the 3 that they like.
Okay. Because
So
I know-
Marla said she was gonna have to listen to it, Alan, to rewrite it.
Yeah, because Alan had good points and said he wanted to change 1.6 to say this, and then Ed came in later and we're putting that intermunicipal connecting before the new street connections.
Right.
Yeah, so it's a mess on my end.
If you want, after you type it up, you could email it to all of us and we could just look at it and be like, yeah, that's what we intended.
Okay.
Marla, there's a specific point where Alan basically, he takes a stab at the language of combining 1.6 and 1.8. And so that language, everybody liked it. And so
Yes.
you got to find that spot. And then adding on to that would be Ed's language.
Okay.
1.6 or 1.7.
Come on,
So just
Austin. That was
skip
more
until
than a
Alan
stab. That
talks.
was a bullseye.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
was.
it was.
And
It
then,
wasn't a
everybody-
stab.
and then Ed nailed it with the first sentence. That was collaboration at its finest.
Exactly. That
I
was
may-
a great
I may have
discussion.
undersold that. I may have undersold it just a tad.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And, I hope everybody needs to feel like you should speak up your differing opinions. It's great. My mind's been changed many times in these meetings or gone back and forth by, oh, that's a great point. I think I agree with that, and someone else. So that's what makes it productive. If we bring up different points of view, that's what we want to do.
Yeah, and please, I sent these things to Austin. I'm a big advocate of, of straw men and things so that we can hash out, so,
Mhm.
when I submit something like that or whatever, I'm looking for people to kind of
Yeah.
fire away, right? What's the
Yeah.
opinion, right? Because I
I-
thought
yeah.
a lot of good points came out in discussions of the wordings of these things.
Yeah. When we went through and redid and made this recommended general plan, that's what we all did. Like, we would take stabs at it and just submit. Here's one way of wording it. And everybody would submit different ideas, ways of wording it. Because that way you can take a little bit of time to think and wordsmith on your own and then pull it together. So I appreciate you doing that, Ed. I think that's very helpful. Gives us a starting point as well. So, okay, so we're going to move on to the second action item on the agenda, which is the ordinance 2020-13 retaining wall irrigation. And so we'll go ahead and get the background on that.
Okay, so this is coming back to the Planning Commission. This, as you'll remember, the Planning Commission did recommend an ordinance that was drafted regarding the drip irrigation systems within in between tiered retaining walls. And so this went to City Council. The City Council looked at it and they had a good productive discussion. And ultimately some concerns kind of arose as they began to think about, what is the city's current load on as far as parks go right now. To be honest, like the City Council discussion was, there's a lot of, we have a limited staff in Alpine and they have a hard time maintaining the parks that we do have right now. And so when you add more open space, it just creates more work for that staff that's already being worked, that's working really hard. And so they were concerned that this would open a door to potentially have more maintenance for the city. And so they wanted to kind of shore that up and avoid that in the future if possible. And so that was one of their concerns. And then they also mentioned that there should be some kind of language to specify what type of plants are planted in between retaining walls. So I believe it was Lon Lot that said, it should be drought resistant or drought tolerant type vegetation. He's a landscaper by trade.
Exactly, I was going to say.
He knows that better than anybody, what that's going to entail. So, so staff has basically taken those suggestions from the City Council, and we've tried to incorporate that into the language that was recommended originally by the Planning Commission, and hopefully kind of, add those concerns and hopefully address those. So let me see if I can pull it up.
They just want to strengthen this then, because that was the whole point of the change to begin with, was to limit the amount of work that the city had to do.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the most of the language that's coming back is basically what was sent to the Planning Commission or to the City Council. I'm sorry.
Okay. So it looks like page 2, item F, is that where all the changes are?
Correct. Yeah. And I'll share that in just a moment here.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, this is the language that's incorporating the suggestions from City Council. So I guess it's coming here and for planning commission's final, they suggested what the language is, and then it was staff's tried to put that in here. So, any wordsmithing or tightening things up, is greatly appreciated, or if
Yeah, it's kind of verbose.
written a better way, poke some holes in it,
Austin, I did like that the HOA reference got deleted, because I think HOAs are such fuzzy things.
Yeah. I think
they tend to disappear over time.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So what is this? The system shall be installed by the developer, and the future owner of the open space will be responsible for the drip. What does that mean, future owner? Because it's open space of the city. Why
Well,
did you change that?
This is not just referring to public open space, but there's also private open space.
Private? Oh, okay.
So that leaves it open-ended. So in the event that if it were private open space, the city's not going to be the owner of that. So whoever owns that private open space is going to be responsible for it, and not the city. It's essentially what that's saying.
Okay, so does the city own public open space then?
Do we own the public open space? We do. Yeah, so all of our parks, including things
Right.
like Creekside Park, Lambert Park, any kind of park is considered public open space.
So why does it say future owners?
That's a great question. So when a development is created, the developer is heavily involved in the process, and so they are the owner of the land initially. And so they'll develop it, they'll put in the infrastructure, put in the roads, they'll build the lots.
Okay.
Then they sell it off to homeowners, who then will over time will take control over the subdivision. And if there's an HOA, that HOA will take control of the open space. And so that's why the ownership changes over time.
Okay. And this is referring to new developments and that. So, okay.
Correct.
Hey, Austin, just a question that I should probably know the answer to, but who does own the private open space?
Most of the time it's some type of homeowners association.
I thought it was like those trusts that hold they hold the development. My understanding was on private open space that the rights of development of the property are held by a company. Can't think of the name of the company, but they hold the development rights and they can never be taken out of that trust. And so the property, as it changes hands, it can change ownership, but the development rights are never sold with the ownership. And so whoever.
I think you're thinking of like a conservation easement. That's how.
Oh, you're right. That is a conservation easement. Okay, so
private open space.
Private open space compared.
It's a collective. So every person who lives in that subdivision essentially has a claim to ownership of that. So it's kind of like a stock or something, right?
Oh, okay.
So you have a stock for Microsoft, and
Right.
everybody has a share of that. It's the same concept, works with private open space.
I know why I'm thinking of that is because in the Zolman property, whatever that development used to be called to begin with, that they have that conservation easement that they did on the hillside there. That it's private open space. We have do you know which property I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. And that is,
They put a conservation easement on that.
The Ridge at Alpine subdivision. And that was a unique circumstance. One of those pieces was already in a conservation easement.
Right. Yeah.
And then the other one was private open space, but it was dedicated to one owner, not the entire.
Right. Okay. Thank you. That's where my confusion came from.
But those are the exceptions to the rule. Most of the time, it's going to be that everyone in that neighborhood kind of has a stake in ownership.
So I understand, Austin, also, I mean, this discussion in the city council and whatever, I mean, there's really just one subdivision that this applies to right now, right?
It's not, well, are you talking about the retaining wall?
Yeah, the retaining wall, right.
I mean, to be honest, our retaining wall ordinance is just a few years old. So this is one of those things that just wasn't thought of. And there's going to be future developments. And so the language here is, we're not trying to zero out one particular subdivision, but this is looking forward and hopefully addressing this issue for any future developments.
Yeah.
Austin, do we define drought resistant vegetation anywhere?
I do not believe we have a definition of that.
Yeah.
So-
We have
Don't we have a
a
definition
street.
somewhere of like appropriate street trees?
Mhm.
We
We
do
do.
have a tree guideline, yes.
Because it seems like if we're going to have this term drought resistant vegetation,
Mhm.
I mean, it seems rather meaningless unless we define it somewhere. Similar to maybe what we do with street trees.
Right.
Unless we don't really care.
And I'd probably also get rid of
guide that we have
when
does
possible.
outline,
Whoops.
does outline deer resistant. It does outline drought resistant. If I remember, and Jed, you can kind of help me remember this, but I believe our tree guide does have like little classifications for trees. I don't know if
Does it have it for shrubs?
Shrubs that it probably doesn't have all the shrubs that you're going to want to put in a situation like this though.
Yeah, the tree guide is more tree related. It doesn't talk about shrubs, and it's shrubs that we want to happen in between the retaining walls.
Right.
So who could we refer to? Do you want to say as referenced by the Utah State Extension Service Drought Tree Guide? I don't know. That's a point of if we request that, what metric are you going to use for that? Or is it just a suggestion? Because it does say, and when possible. I mean, I think it's pretty much always possible.
Yeah, that was
Why
what I
it
was
would.
looking at.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if I'm a developer and I'm trying to be conscientious and I'm reading this, I might come back and say, well, okay, I have no idea really what do you mean by drought resistant vegetation? Can you give me some guidance? And it just seems very subjective if we don't have it defined anywhere.
Mhm. Or a reference to where to get a list or something like that. So
I don't know if there's some resource to cite to, or that's why it just brought to mind that I know we have some type of reference point for street trees that people can go to for some guidance. I just don't know if we have or need the same type of reference point for drought resistant vegetation, somebody who's trying to comply with the ordinance.
might be kind of a cool thing to add, given the water-wise, recommendations of the state, to just have that as a reference somewhere on the city site of, recommended drought-resistant foliage or something.
I would also get rid of the "and when possible."
Yeah.
Me too. Because it's always
Open-ended.
possible. It's not like, oh, they don't have any of those in stock.
Yeah,
Yeah, it should always be possible.
I like that comment. We should delete those 3 words.
Yeah. So shrubs shall be drip irrigated to minimize erosion. I don't know if I like the way it's worded, but so the actual size of the shrubs shall be less than 1/2 width of the terrace. Is there a way to put drip irrigation shall be used? I don't think we need to say shrubs shall be drip irrigated. Can we just say drip irrigation shall be used to minimize erosion, and drought resistant vegetation shall be used to minimize future watering needs? And then,
That seems a little more wordy than what's already there, quite honestly.
actually, I just took out words. I got rid of shrubs shall be drip irrigated, just to say drip irrigation shall be used. I guess it's the same amount of words. I don't know. I just don't like the words irrigated, drip irrigated. I don't know. Maybe I'm just being funny. I have to make up for the wordsmither not being here. Shrubs shall be drip irrigated and should be drought resistant. Are they going to actually use other vegetation on it besides shrubs? Are you recommending ground covers and stuff too, or why does this?
No, the ordinance right above that talks about shrubs. So we are requiring shrubs.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering,
Yeah, right there.
right. Drought resistant vegetation.
I guess we don't have to tell them why they're drip irrigating. So your comment of just eliminating to minimize erosion.
Mhm. Yeah, I just think drip irrigation should be used and drought resistant shrubs or whatever. Or shrub, shrubs shall be strip irrigated and, or how about if you start with shrubs shall be drought resistant and shall be drip irrigated?
How about drought resistant shrubs shall be drip irrigated, period.
Ooh, Jed, that
There we
sounds
go.
great. I love it. So anyway, I just think that should be shortened up. Responsibility relies with the property owner on which the majority of the structure is built. If the majority of the structure is built on private property or public open space, a pressurized, if the majority of the structure is built on private or public open space, a pressurized irrigation drip. What is the, I guess we specifically need to reference pressurized irrigation versus culinary? Is that why that's listed in there? Okay.
Yeah.
And wouldn't that be the same if it was on private property? Or I guess maybe it's not available everywhere. Why are we distinguishing in that half pressurized irrigation and not in the rest?
We're just outlining, we're outlining the requirements that the developer needs to install. And so it's just trying to be as clear as possible what the requirements for the developer will be.
Okay.
You know, that actually brings up a good point though. What if they're in an area of the city where pressurized irrigation is not available?
Yeah, if they're above 5,000 feet or whatever, then what?
I guess either they water it with culinary or they don't water it at all. So we need to think about the verbiage there.
Yeah, and not watering at all could equate to the equivalent of them not planting anything at all.
Xeriscape.
Yeah, but there wouldn't be a shrub.
Correct.
Yep, safe.
And the whole point is the shrub. Yeah, exactly. The whole point is having the shrubs break up the wall of retaining.
I guess the question is, do we want to just take off the word pressurized irrigation service?
Yeah, I would, because it's basically whatever irrigation they have, they're going to use, which
say
it's available, they will use it.
The majority of the structure in private or public open space shall be drip irrigated.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of where that's coming from, you know?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, because I think they'll use the pressurized irrigation if it's available. Why wouldn't they?
Exactly.
Yeah, and we would make them too if it was.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody wants to pay for it, but for expensive water if they don't have to.
Yeah.
Do you want to put in that they are responsible to replace dead shrubs? Because what I see happening is someone's going to plant shrubs, they're all going to die, you're going to have these dead shrubs there and they're left or something.
I think the last sentence infers to that, basically saying the maintenance of it, but I don't know
It
that
just says it specifically says the maintenance of the irrigation system.
yeah.
Is this something that needs a recommendation?
Yes, they did want it to come back to city
Okay,
council.
so we definitely need to retype what we want this to say then.
Right. Whoever's going to make a motion wants to.
Yeah, somebody might want to copy. I can't make the motions, but I would copy and paste this into like a Word document really quick and do some editing because it's too long. maybe Alan's memory, he can stare and do it, but I am too old to do that. Or I shouldn't say I'm too old. I'll think of some other excuse, but
I think I'm older than you, Jane.
I don't think so. I think I win. I think I win the card here. All right, so removing the references to pressurized irrigation, I think we should add, personally, I think we should add a reference to maintain the irrigation system and health of the shrubs or something like that, or irrigation system and shrubbery.
And plantings.
Shrubbery is a good word. And we were going to strike out "and when possible." And then what do you guys think? Do you think we can just eliminate the "to minimize irrigation" and "to minimize future watering needs"? Do you think we can just state shrubs shall be drip irrigated and drought resistant vegetation shall be used, period? And the responsibility of drip irrigation. I don't know. Do you think it needs to be called out? Why? Do you guys want that in here? Or do you want it just to say, just do this? Drip irrigation maintenance. Do you think the last sentence should be changed to say that the future owners will be responsible for the cost of operation and maintenance after the warranty period expires? Because the cost of operation isn't associated with the warranty period. Does that make sense? Shall be responsible for the cost of operation and the maintenance of the drip irrigation system after the warranty period expires. Anyway, I would recommend that just because it makes it sound like that they're not responsible for the cost until the warranty period expires, the way it's written. I hope that someone's actually working on this and we're not all sitting here thinking someone else is doing it. Alan's kind of busy. Who's got it?
I was messing with it. Maybe somebody else is too.
Yeah.
Jed is too.
Okay, good.
I'm messing around, so.
That's
Well,
great. Okay, yeah, let's get a few. I was just thinking.
I think if we get a motion on the table and then we can.
Right, then we can go from there. We need to practice doing that more like we're supposed to, but it's hard to do in a situation like this where we make a motion because.
This is a very long.
Yeah.
Longer than usual.
Right.
Okay, before we do a motion, I've just been messing with this. Shall I just read this to the group and let's see if this is
Sure.
what we talked about?
Yeah.
Okay, so starting, okay, so I'm looking on page 2 there, 1/2 the width of the terrace, and then we've got some red lines, right? So starting there with shrubs,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Then at least what I've got, and just pardon me because I've got some ellipses here that I'll have to refer back and forth, but hey, make sure he isn't, sorry, dog yelling. Make sure that Angus isn't barking. Okay, drought-resistant shrubs and drip irrigation shall be installed to minimize water usage. The responsibility of drip irrigation resides with the property owner on which the majority of the structure is built. If the majority of the structure is built on private or public open space, the drip irrigation system shall be installed by the developer, and the future owners of the open space shall be responsible for the maintenance and appearance of the shrubbery and irrigation after the warranty period expires.
We need to list cost in there.
Oh, maybe, yeah, maybe I was supposed to say cost.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I would put the future
Yeah,
owner
yeah, sorry.
space will be responsible for the cost of operation.
So, yeah, it would be the shrubbery and irrigation, maintenance and cost, oh, it disappeared. And cost of operation after, so anyway, yes, what I read and then including the cost of operation language.
Yeah.
I think my version sounds pretty close to yours.
Any suggested changes, Jed?
I emailed it to Austin. We'll just have him
Oh,
pull it up.
okay.
We can look at it.
Okay.
Maybe.
That's funny.
But while we're waiting for there, I liked Alan's thing. I had something very similar. The only thing that I had is that if we were expanding the last sentence to include kind of, I liked your wording, the appearance.
Uh-huh.
I had something ridiculous like shrub health or something.
Yeah, an appearance kind of alludes to the whole thing. If it's
I like the appearance, but I thought maybe we should include those same things in the sentence before that says we should say something like the responsibility of drip irrigation, cost of operation, and appearance resides with the property owner in which the majority of the structure is built.
Yeah, that's good. I had one question for Jed and Austin. What about weeds in this situation? So are you requiring that they put down weed barrier fabric or anything like that? Because, you know, I can see a lot of weeds everywhere with shrubs in between. Even though the drip will help, but is that a problem? Has it been in the past? Anyway, just a thought.
Weeds are always a problem.
Do you want to require a weed barrier, or do you want to just, I think with Alan's wording, the appearance, if something is more of a public nuisance or someone complains, then that would require them to maintain it.
Yeah, I mean, we have right in the wording that's currently here, it does say maintenance, and I would consider that part of the maintenance of that area.
Okay,
And then
good.
2, the city does have a weed ordinance, so if it
Okay.
does become overgrown, we can address it that way.
Okay. So do you want to read Jed's to us, Austin?
Sure, it says drought-resistant shrubs shall be drip irrigated to minimize water usage. responsibility of drip irrigation resides with the property owner on which the majority of the structure is built. If the majority of the structure is built on private or public open space, an irrigation service and drip irrigation system shall be installed by the developer. The developer is responsible for the drip irrigation maintenance, establishment of vegetation, and cost of operation until the warranty period expires, after which the responsibility lies with the owners of the property.
Nicely done.
It's a little longer, but I think it makes it a little clearer.
Are we not worried about drought resistant?
He's got drought
He
resistant.
said drought
Just
resistant.
at the front.
He
Got
just threw it in the beginning and tricked us.
it. I
Yeah.
tripped right over the first word.
Exactly, I know.
But Ed had a couple of Ed had some good suggestions, which I think would go in the second sentence, right? Didn't you add the responsibility of drip irrigation? What was your wording?
Well, in actuality with Jed, he actually addressed what I was talking about by combining it all into the last sentence. So
Okay.
he's saying the developer is responsible for the irrigation maintenance, establishment of the vegetation, cost of operation, and then after which he says then that goes to the owners of the property. So he kind of listed the three we had there.
So one quick suggestion looking at this language proposed by Jed is if you go back further in item F, it says the size of shrub shall be less than 1/2 the width of the terrace. So it doesn't make mention of a drought resistant shrub. And then all of a sudden we start talking about drought resistant shrubs. So I think maybe if that's how we're going to do it, you might need to introduce that earlier. Or
Just maybe add the sentence somewhere earlier, just say drought resistant shrubs shall be used.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
like that idea. So
Or you could just use it in the first sentence of F. It says for terrace
a
walls,
minimum of 5.
5 drought-resistant shrubs for every 20 linear feet of planting area or something like
I
that.
like that.
Yeah, that makes it easy.
Yep.
Okay, so we need a motion from someone.
Okay, I'll motion that we approve the language proposed by Jed and with the, how can I say this? With the inclusion of drought resistant shrubs earlier in the document. Oh, that's not very clear. So
Okay.
somebody else want to take a better stab at it?
Does anybody want to give that motion an approval? If not, then it gets dropped and we'll make a new motion. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a new motion and make it more clear.
Austin, do you have a recommendation? Can we just reference Jed's language, or do we need to read that into the motion?
I'm on mute, sorry. So the way that you can do it is you could just say, yes, you could refer to his language as submitted during the
Well, that
meeting.
was fine.
We just need an item number to reference where we're inserting drought resistant
Yeah.
on the.
Rather than just say earlier in the document, go ahead and try and stab at that again, Ethan. And just say, just add insertion of drought resistant in the sentence, minimum of 5 shrubs or something like that. So it just has some of the reference point for it.
Okay. So I propose that we adopt the language proposed by Jed with the additional language being added in the sentence where we reference the installation of shrubs, that we put in the installation of drought resistant shrubs.
Okay, so okay, we have a motion, and then we can modify the motion. So do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
For the purpose of moving on, I will second the motion.
Okay, so we've got a second of the motion by Ed. And now if you have any modifications, then we can make a modification to the motion.
I would make a modification to the motion to reference the first sentence in section F where it says a minimum of 5 shrubs, that we change that to a minimum of 5 drought-resistant shrubs.
Okay, so we have a change to the motion. Do we have a second to Ed?
Second.
Okay, Alan seconds that. So the motion on the table is the motion Ethan made with the modification of Ed. So any discussion on that? Okay.
Do we have in the language of the motion that we're recommending approval?
Oh, that's a good point. So we are not approving, but we are recommending approval, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so in your modification, can that just be a clerical correction, Marla, where you just change it to say that he recommends approval?
So we have Ethan Allen's motion, and then that was not seconded, or it was seconded by Ed Bush. And then Ed Bush, the second motion, correct?
Substitute motion. Yeah, Ed Bush issued
Modified.
a substitute motion to replace Ethan's original motion.
Okay, and then who seconded that?
Alan.
Alan.
And my question to you is the wording recommend approval? Just make sure that's the wording at the beginning of the motion. Do we need to make a new motion to change that wording, or can we just make a clerical correction that they recommend approval rather than?
Yeah, I'm just going to make it clerical.
Okay. Okay. Perfect.
Yeah, it
Okay.
should be clerical because you don't have the power to approve it.
Right. Okay. Perfect. So with those corrections or clarifications, then we should be good to go ahead and take a vote on that. So everyone in favor of this motion, say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed to this motion, say nay. Okay, so the motion passes unanimously. All right. Good discussions tonight. The next thing we have is communications. So do we have any communications we need to discuss? When's our next meeting, Austin?
Next meeting is let's see here, let me pull up my calendar, the 18th.
Okay,
Jane, were we going to discuss the training document that
yeah.
Alan sent out?
Yes, so that was the next thing that we wanted to talk about. And Alan has put together this training document for us. We wanted to run that by legal. I thought we were the next step was to have David Church look at it and see if that's okay, for if there's any problem with us, distributing that among the planning commission members and allowing us to give that to new planning commission members as they join us.
Hey, Jane.
Uh-huh.
The only thing I would say is that I don't know that I necessarily intended that to be a comprehensive training document, because I intended there to be some discussion, perhaps some collaboration. I think it would be helpful, for example, if we included kind of a procedural format, right? I mean, things along the line of the fact that we recommend approval or denial. We do not approve or deny. This is the process with, how we open a meeting, and then we have public comment, and then we make a motion. I mean, there's some procedural aspects that I think when we all come to our first 1 or 2 or 3 meetings, it's a little bit kind of like, going like, wait, how does this work? What do we do and when? So I don't know that I intended that to be a
Final document.
Final document as, really more than kind of a starting point.
Right. Oh, that's a good idea. Should we add an agenda item? Could we have an agenda item, Austin, for our next meeting where we discuss what would be helpful to everyone, and we look at what we think we need to have as far as general directions? And it would be nice if I knew the city right now. Is there any kind of a document that's given to anyone? I know they said I think it was David Church that talked to some of you guys to an email. I didn't get anything when I got put in. I was just totally. So could you find out if anything does exist that gives any kind of direction to planning commission members or guidance or?
I can tell you that David Church drafted a document that kind of goes over responsibilities in public meetings. It's a very well-written document that I've shared with recent planning commission members that have recently been appointed.
Okay.
I thought it would be useful for them, but it's in no way is a comprehensive training or anything like that. It's just a quick kind of introduction into the life of being.
Can you send that to all of us? Because I've never seen that.
Sure, I can send that.
And Alan, have you already shared yours with everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so.
And then I think we should put on an agenda item for next meeting to discuss. Is that an appropriate agenda item of just a discussion of what would help new planning commission members and existing planning commission members perform better? Is that an okay agenda item, or do we need to keep that in communications section?
No, absolutely. That could be a discussion item on our next agenda.
Okay, if that sounds good to everyone, then our homework for this week could be the next couple weeks could be to read through or reread what David Church has and to read what Alan has, and maybe write down some ideas of what things you had questions on, what things you think would have helped you, and things like that. So we have some kind of a starting point. Does that sound good? Okay. I think that's one thing that we can do to make things better for the next person who comes along, so that 10 years from now, they're not still saying the same thing that I said, which was like, what the heck am I doing here? And what am I supposed to be saying? So, all right, great. Any other communication? Okay, let's move on to the minutes. Sylvia did submit a change to me, Marla. I think it was line, let me see here. I've got to go back to the bottom of this. I think it's line 29. Basically on the final item, it says that the roll call at the bottom looks correct, but in the sentence above it, it says that there were 7 ayes, no, 0 nays, and it was unanimous, when it was actually the 4 and 3. That is on line 29. I guess it wasn't quite the last thing, but on line 29, it says that there were 7 ayes and 0 nays recorded below, and it's 4 ayes and 3 nays. So it goes down on the next line. So trust Sylvia to catch that.
I had one other correction.
Okay.
On line 11, it said that I wasn't in favor of combing lots, and I think it's was combining lots.
Good point.
Of course, I'm not really in favor of combing lots either. But.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you have a big comb.
Right.
Anything else anyone has? Okay, so we're ready for a motion.
Motion to approve the minutes with the correction stated.
Okay, motion second by John.
Yes.
Okay, and all in favor, say aye.
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 And any opposed, say nay. Okay, we're done.
Need a motion to adjourn.
I make a motion. We don't have to have a motion to adjourn, do we really?
No, actually.
Okay.
Count your gavel.
Are we supposed to make a motion to adjourn, that we've just been ignoring that, or not?
We are supposed to do that, yes. So,
Okay, somebody make a motion.
I motion that we adjourn the planning commission meeting.
Second.
Ed made a motion that we adjourn. Alan seconded it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone who wants to stay, say nay. Okay, we're good. Good to
all
go.
right, good night.
All right. Okay, thanks, guys.
Night, everybody.
See ya.